Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to, I didn't know.
I'll take a look at it later so I can see the synopsis.
I got a gift box, I mean, care package, and yeah, I got a whole bunch of shared the wealth.
Nice.
Trail of Life.
Yeah, she's running late evidently.
Picking up Jennifer and Justin.
Getting above us.
Were they at your house yesterday?
They were at
I don't know.
the house, and then Laura dropped them off, and then went to go pick him up.
I didn't get home till 7, so I have no idea.
Jude, welcome to the Jeep Club. Broke down
It wasn't even that big a deal.
the transmission.
No, it was transmission.
Did you? Oh, yeah.
And then we just went to a junkyard.
Pick and pull. Grabbed one. How'd you guys determine it was the TCU?
Put it into first and second, and then drove, and then kept it in first, and then put it into third and skipped second.
Mm.
And then it wouldn't skip second, it was different from third too. So.
So your grandpa probably didn't get anything done yesterday, huh? All right, good morning. How's everybody doing?
Nobody's dead yet.
I heard the sound. I was like, that's not 30 Tic Tacs.
It's like a cereal.
It's like 300.
It's like a grape nuts box.
They'll never run out. Did I cost them? No, it came from Thomas.
Ah,
Like a cereal box size.
you should try a bowl of Tic Tacs with some milk. cold teeth with crunchiness.
Was it, yeah, hard?
That's an excellent event.
And then the quarters can go towards their like youth fund or something.
Speaking about youth fund, are we still doing the pumpkin patch in October?
If that's what everyone would like to do.
So it's on the calendar from January.
I want to make it something that our teens are excited to do too though. You know, we have little really like
I love the pumpkin.
well, yeah.
They take them to a haunted house.
Is it going to have
Is
to be
he-
like carved after or something?
I just don't want you getting tired or feeling like walking or like for me to be alright. Okay. Well, let them talk it.
I think if we organize it, it'd be nice to do it in advance and invite like Jack and then.
Yeah, we could do something.
So if we like
Well,
plan ahead, though I think they're fine driving out to your family out and things like that.
Well,
But I think we need to be more organized and sometimes
the good ones are like down like Puyallup area.
Yeah, that's like the, yeah, there's some good ones where they have like 100 acres.
Yeah. And then sticking to the plan.
Yep. So we
Like
can
we
invite people.
get kind of places with weather, illness.
All right, someone want to open this up in prayer this morning? Emmy.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you that all of us could be here. I pray for those who are not here. I think of Nikki who is in Japan and keep her safe. I pray for those who aren't feeling well. And Jesus Christ.
Amen. All right. So we left off last weekend at the year of the four emperors. $100 to anybody who can name the four emperors.
Caesar.
No. Without looking at your phone.
There was only 4?
Yeah, the year of the four. Nope.
Caesar Augustus.
Nope. Gosh, no one's paying attention.
Gustavia or?
I mean, we're way past the Caesars now.
Okay, well, I'm looking at Severus. That one?
There's one.
Oh, there was the guy that did really, really bad things. He was a guy.
Nero.
Nero.
Well, he was prior to the.
Wasn't there one that did the sister?
Just one.
The one
The-
before
Nero.
There's Galba.
Or there. Yep. Galba. Yep.
What about the one that looked like?
Julia's looking at her phone.
I took my notes. Those aren't my notes.
Oh, okay.
I took notes on hair.
Yep.
That's Nero. That's Nero.
Nero?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one.
Chin beard guy. Turkey neck.
He reminds me of, what's the fawn from Language and Order?
Yes.
Toughness. It's toughness.
From The Office.
Yeah, I was
From-
thinking Moe's from The Office also.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yes. Well, he's definitely inbred, for sure.
Easy now.
No, I'm just kidding.
Canceled.
Yeah, so Nero, who's the guy in love with the sister and ran a pretty ruthless empire. So he's,
If that guy was really nice, you'd be shocked.
yeah, he looks Irish or Scottish.
Yeah, we're all ugly.
Yeah, so he commits suicide eventually. And so then we enter in the year of the four emperors, where we go through Galba, Otho, Vitellius, and then eventually Vespasian. So Rome's dealing with essentially a civil war internally. armies marching in on Rome, Rome marching in on Rome, which was a really big no-no to bring an army, a garrison within the walls of Rome. But Rome's going through a civil war during this time period, which is the year of 69 AD. And so then we left off with Vitellius. So we got Galba, there's Otho. Otho actually would have probably, historians believe he would have actually been a decent emperor. And then you have Vitellius, who was a drunkard and loved his food. And so he comes up against Vespasian. Vespasian is currently stationed in the eastern provinces, so he's a general at this time, and the Senate reaches out to Vespasian to see if he'd be interested in taking on the role of emperor to overthrow Vitellius. And a number of his followers kind of boost him up and convince him to pursue that position. And so he works his way towards Rome, and Vitellius sends out legions against Vespasian. And obviously Vespasian's been a general for years and is much more been dealing with the Persians and whatnot, so he's much more experienced in war. So basically makes short work of Vitellius's legions, and eventually offers a chance for Vitellius to step down to allow Vespasian to enter, but Vitellius refuses, and eventually he commits suicide. So enter in Vespasian, which is the start of the Flavian dynasty. So 69 AD, Vespasian takes the role of emperor. So Vespasian had two sons, Titus and Domitian. Domitian was the younger of the two, and he was never really acknowledged by his father, Vespasian. So while Titus, his firstborn, was basically the apple of his eye, he had all his dad's attention. His dad put a lot of effort into training and in taking Titus under his wing, while Domitian was kind of left as the young child without a father. His mother died early, so Domitian was instead raised by his uncle and spent the majority of his time within the palace. So he was within the palace of Rome even during Nero's crazy reign. So he had front row seats on how the Senate and the upper class worked, how corrupt they were, how immoral they were. And so that would sit, in the back of Domitian's mind as he grew up within the palace. So then if you remember, in 70 AD, Vespasian, so we covered what was going on in Jerusalem and Judea, how they were under, essentially internal civil war of their own. There was, essentially three sects. There was the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the Essenes. And, and the Zealots, who stemmed out of the Pharisees. And the Zealots were, their mission was to basically purge Jerusalem of all Greeks, and Greeks, or Hellenized Jews, they call them. So they murdered, killed, deported any Greek or Greek-speaking Jew out of Jerusalem. And in that process, they basically took Jerusalem back from Rome. They killed the legions there. Caleb's high. No more data. Why can't I think of the word? When a military is surprised by the enemy, ambush. Thank you. Whoa. The Jews ambushed a part of Vespasian's legion that was made up of primarily Arabs and Persians, and that was in I believe that was in 66 A.D. And so they got rid of all the Roman influence within Jerusalem. So, upon hearing this, if you remember Vespasian, Nero asked Vespasian to go in and purge or bring Jerusalem and Judea back under Rome's control. So he's on his way there when he hears word of Nero's suicide. So that whole effort is put on pause while they go through this internal civil war in Rome. So Vespasian, upon taking emperor, returns his focus back on the region of Judea. And so he assigns a son, Titus, to head that effort into Judea. And so, upon marching in Judea, Titus informs his army, which again is made up, the majority of, or a good portion of it, it's made up of Arabs and Persians. He tells them, with explicit orders to not destroy the temple. And Titus also tried to reach a peaceful resolution with Jerusalem, but because of the infighting within Jerusalem that was going on between the Zealots and the more moderate Jews, or the Hellenized Jews, they were unable to reach a peace agreement with Titus. So Titus tells his army to go in, but to not, touch the temple. But in their rage, they obviously, as we know, razed the temple to the ground in 70 AD. So, historians speculate that they did that because they were they were angry at what Jerusalem was putting them through. This wasn't a one-day siege. It was a pretty extended amount of time for them to take back Jerusalem. And then others speculate that it was because of the ambush that happened years before. The Jews ambushed and took the legionary eagle from this auxiliary of Vespasian that was made up of Arabs and Persians who, kind of already had a viewpoint on the Jews. So, they took this chance to basically demolish, or not basically, but demolish the temple and demolish the Jews. So, after Jerusalem was taken by Rome, a few pockets of resistance remained, including those who were holed up in the fortress of Masada. So it was made up of just over 900 what they call Sicarii. I think we talked about this a few weekends ago. Yeah, the assassins. This fortress is nearly impregnable. I think we've already seen this image, but it sits on top of a mountain ridge. So as you can imagine, it would be almost impossible during that time to overtake it. Yeah. So Rome spent over a year building a rampart up to this fortress to take it. And then in 73 AD, the Romans were finally able to enter into the fortress, where they found all 900 plus Daddy.
teaching Sunday school and having a hard time.
With Sybil?
Sorry, Holly.
She's got it. So the Rome builds ramparts up to Masada, 73 AD, and they enter into the fortress and they find all 900 plus people had either they made a pact of suicide slash execution. So all 900 plus people were killed in order to prevent being slaves by Rome entering into slavery. So all in, it was estimated by the Josephus, who was actually with Titus at the time, that 1.1 million Jews were killed during the Jewish revolt of 66. And what's that?
66 through 73.
Yeah, 66 through 73. And then 100,000 Jews were killed in Galilee. And then roughly, which this was roughly a quarter of the Jewish population at the time. So a quarter of the Jews were wiped out. And then it was estimated another 100,000 Jews were taken into slavery. So meanwhile, while Titus is busy in Judea, Vespasian was able to end the civil war within Rome, in which he established the Flavian dynasty. So he implemented tax reforms in order to regain the treasury that Nero, essentially expended. And then Vespasian took on some pretty ambitious building projects, which include the space or the Flavian amphitheater, what we call the Colosseum. And then in 79 AD, Vespasian was taken by a sudden attack of diarrhea. Where am I at? Otho Vitellius Vespasian. So he was taken by, he had a brucellosis. Is that how you say it? Brucellosis? Brucellosis. Brucellosis? It's like a fever, like a
Bacterium.
yeah,
Like dysentery.
yeah. So ended up having the runs, and
Figure that out.
because it was recorded, so he stood up.
No, but like the organism that caused his.
Oh, I think through his symptoms that were recorded and what was common during that time period. I think brucellosis was pretty common.
Have his body kicking around.
I mean, they were
Save all their bodies.
selling urine as like a fertilizer and cleaner. So
You're in for a treat if you do that.
The Mongols use urine in their hair.
So he dies, and leading up to this time period and during this time period, Christianity, has been spreading north, through the efforts of Paul and Peter and Apollos and Barnabas and Prisca and Aquila. They were active in spreading Christianity up into Greece and Syria and Turkey, and also down into Egypt, Alexandria. So that was kind of Apollos' mission. Yeah, in Africa. So, but at least from what we know, because we'll be getting into this, Christianity had not yet kind of made its way across over the Andes into France and Spain. Or sorry, the Alps. Sorry. Think
I haven't made it over the Andes either.
No, it's a long time till that happens.
That's a little bit further into the future.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It's a little bit more westward.
So, there Christianity spreading north. The Syrian city Antioch was a major hub for Christianity movement during this time period, and even during Paul's time period, because for one, it was the third largest city in Rome, behind Rome and Alexandria. So it was a major hub, both in trade and politics. So Antioch offered the best possibilities because a large number of Greeks there sympathized with the Jewish religion. So the church in Antioch was actually founded by Christians who, as a result of the persecution of Stephen, had to leave Jerusalem. A lot of the Christians within Jerusalem were pushed out during that Jewish revolt, the infighting that went on. So Antioch would have been among the first places where the gospel would have been proclaimed to the Gentiles who were without circumcision. If you wanted to read Acts 11:26, it indicates that the congregation had already been established, prior to Paul's arrival. So there were Christians that moved up, north into southern Turkey to Antioch, and it had established congregations there. And as a side note, to the ancient world, because these were uncircumcised Greeks, and to the ancient world, circumcision had a negative reputation, and it was considered barbarian to do circumcision. So, that's why the Scripture uses the term God-fears. A lot of the God-fears were Greeks or people that were non-Jewish that still wanted to observe the Torah and acknowledge God as Yahweh, but they would refuse to be circumcised. So obviously they couldn't enter in as be adopted into the tribe of Judah, or into the Jewish tribes. So they would be coined God-fears. So Antioch would have been one of the first places where such God-fearers would come to learn that they could finally become full members of the elected congregation or the elected community through baptism. So it was probably around 40 AD that the Christian movement had made its way to Rome, with a large number of those first to come being Jewish Christians. Up until, if you remember, Emperor Claudia had instituted an edict that to remove all Jews out of Rome, and that was primarily because of the schisms that were arising between the Christians and there at the time and the Jews over the person of Christ. So Claudia instituted a edict to remove all Jews out of Rome, and that was done in 49 AD. And so, this is kind of a quick overview of what's going on within the Christian movement. It's spreading into the south, into Africa, and it's moving north up through Turkey into Greece. Hasn't yet crossed the Andes. The Alps. So
That really comes a whole lot later after Columbus
Yeah.
sails the ocean blue.
I've personally been to the Andes, so that's why it's hard to. I'd love to go to the Alps though.
Andes are in South America, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking north.
Yeah,
Northern Spain, northeastern Spain.
we destroyed some.
Pyrenees?
Pyrenees, thank you.
Yeah. So back to Vespasian. So upon his death, his son, his firstborn Titus, takes the reign as emperor. Now that's an Italian right there. So he takes the
He's 5'2".
yeah, he takes the throne in 79. So, Rome at the time, considering Titus's actions up until his appointed, position as emperor, they thought they were going to enter into another era of, you know, cruel and ruthless leader like Nero, because you know, if you read some of the actions of Titus, he was a ruthless general, but he actually ended up being one of Rome's better emperors. Historians say he was one of the few emperors that actually improved as a person after becoming emperor. But he was a ruthless general, and so because of that, or he was ruthless primarily because Vespasian needed him to be. So he took care. He was bad cop while his father played good cop. So it was during Titus's reign that Mount Vesuvius erupted. So in 79 AD. I'm sure you learned this when you were there. When it erupted, it exerted, you know, enough ash and gases to reach a height of 21 miles, which, you know, to put that in speculation, when we fly, we're at roughly 5.5 miles. So, you know, that's almost 4 times the height of the elevation we fly at.
20 meters of ash in 18 hours.
Yep. It ejected 1.5 million tons, or 3 billion pounds per second, during its peak eruption. So as Pastor said, it completely buried Pompeii and Herculaneum under 20 feet of ash.
Meters.
I read 6 meters.
20 meters.
It was 20 meters?
I saw it.
Huh.
Amazing how much they have not undone.
That's only 60%
Yeah.
excavated.
So there was an earthquake with an epicenter near the Bay of Naples, in 60 AD that essentially led, you know, to smaller earthquakes that led to the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. So Titus had to worked hard in leading a relief effort, and he personally donated large amounts of money from the treasury to aid the victims. He personally visited Pompeii twice to, you know, assess what he could do to help. And then Titus finished the construction of the Flavian Amphitheater, the Colosseum that his dad started, and he began using it as, you know, for spectacular entertainment and military triumphals. So, such as the squashing of the Jewish revolt. So, upon defeating the Jews, he had a triumphant within the Colosseum.
I feel a little catfish.
Why is that?
Like the sculpture, he looks like, and then the other rendering.
Yeah, it looks a little. Yeah.
The CGI one gives them a more prominent chin.
Yeah, it does. Doesn't have quite the butt chin that his statue has. In 81 AD, Titus fell ill with a fever and died.
The fever.
Yeah, with a fever. And Rome believed that they were going to enjoy decades of rulership under Titus. You know, they thought they were going to be fruitful and expand the empire, because he was young. He was 39 years old. But he didn't have an heir, didn't have any children. So upon his death, guess who takes office? His brother, right?
Abandoned younger brother.
Yeah.
They always make great
It's
movies.
like,
Ooh. I'd have liked the older kid better too.
Yeah.
Like, ugh.
you think my grandpa was bad.
That's a more accurate rendering.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so his brother Domitian,
Dummy boy.
so he becomes emperor at the age of 29. So if you remember, he had no relative military experience or accomplishments.
You don't need that to leave.
Yeah. And there was a general fear in Rome that Domitian would not be up to the task of emperor.
I bet he loved that.
Yeah. Well, as we'll read or find out, he had a complex.
Yeah.
So the perception of Domitian by the Roman historians was that Domitian was one of the worst emperors in Roman history. But this is largely influenced because of one of his primary missions. A lot of the historians were influenced, the Roman historians were influenced by the politicians, by the Senate. So as you can imagine, from their viewpoint, some of these emperors, they don't really, it's hard to be objective in their description.
Wasn't he trying to take power away from the Senate?
Yeah. So, we briefly touched on his history growing up, right? So he's got front row seats to the immoral, corrupt aristocrats in the Senate. So one of his primary missions upon taking the seat of emperor is to completely flush out the Senate of corruption and eventually remove them from all power. So the Senate, up until then, even though, Caesar kind of, obviously removed or turned Rome from a, republic to a monarchy, the Senate still played a role. They still had some power. They, offered input, made decisions, but yeah, they had become corrupt. They had become fat off the taxes of the people, and so Domitian, made it his mission to remove the Senate from the picture. So you can imagine that went over well with the Senate. So he decided to model his new administration on the divine Augustus Caesar. And he actually, kind of took on the attitude of Caesar. So Domitian decided to set himself up as a god. So he wanted his subjects to refer to him as Lord and Savior of Rome.
Right idea, wrong plan.
Or time period.
Domitian also put in place laws to try to restore the conservative Rome, which included outlawing adultery. So he's already making a name for himself in Rome, because adultery was widespread. What's that? Adultery was widespread throughout Rome, especially in the upper class. So here he is, trying to curtail their morality and threaten execution if
Curtail their immorality?
or their well, they thought they were moral. So
Next thing you know, we'll be trying to reduce the deficit. That bastard.
So he labels himself Lord and Savior, and he also sets his father and brother up as deities. Usually it wasn't uncommon for Rome to set up the previous emperors as deities, but it usually went through approval of the Senate. So Domitian bypasses the Senate, labels his father and brother as deities.
I was looking up for his dad,
Vespasian.
I was trying to figure out like the diarrhea thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what his last words were?
Yeah, he said something like, "Why should I?" Or he stood up and said, "Let me die standing up," or something like that.
He said, "Let me die standing up," but before, I guess so it wasn't his last words, but he said, "I think I'm becoming a god."
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
was like,
yeah,
I'm dying.
yeah.
I need to pass that away.
That was a
for-
pretty common attitude.
When the king dies, he becomes a god.
Yeah.
I'm becoming a god. Should die standing up.
I've become a god many times then.
So also,
Yeah. Gonna go become a god. Is that where the bathroom's all X'd out? Someone
Yeah.
put deity status in there?
yeah. So Domitian claimed that the office of emperor, and this is important, Domitian claimed that the offices of emperor and himself were appointed by the gods as representatives here on earth. So this is a idea or ideology that will continue to grow within that office of emperor, and then eventually work its way into our subject. So while he was unpopular with the upper class because of his hyper focus on weeding out corruption, he was very popular within the lower class. So he streamlined the tax code, making it fairer. The upper class had been growing fat for years, and up until him, the emperors had turned a blind eye. He had elevated the lower class equestrians, who earned a reputation of merit by adding them to positions of power within the government.
You have a red hat.
Who's that? Domitian?
Did you wear a red baseball cap?
Why?
If you're not seeing the parallel, you're blind. Just saying.
Do you have a banner, make Rome great again?
Oh.
I was trying to leave that off the table for a minute.
So he gets rid of the corrupt upper class, instills the common man that proves himself through merit. So this obviously caused a government to exist that was intensely loyal to Domitian. He also gave the common soldiers a 33% increase in pay. So obviously earning their intense loyalty as well. So now he's got the government and the military.
He's a very smart dude.
Yeah. And remember, up until the 1st century BC, Rome, the military was structured by, there's a reason why they call it the equestrian class, because their classes were dictated by your land ownership and animal. So the highest class would own horses, and the military was populated by private citizens. It wasn't like our military where you enlist. It was joined by private citizens, and it was the highest honor. So you couldn't be in the military if you didn't own land. And so the highest ranking soldiers were the upper class that had owned horses, or the equestrian class. That's where we get our term equestrian from. And then one rank below that would be those who could afford shields and swords and spears, heavier armor. And then the lower ranking you go, it gets down to being able to just afford a sword, but you owned land. So that was the structure of their military up until Caesar's time, when they started removing, realized that the size of the military could, as they were expanding territory, you can't manage that much territory with a military that's made up of only people that own land. So Domitian receives major support by the government and the military. And he didn't do anything in ways of expanding Rome. He primarily focused on beefing up the defense of Rome, especially along the Germanic border. So he actually built almost a wall along the entire Rhine River. So set up, forts. I know. Maybe Trump is studying his Roman history.
Maybe he's Domitian reincarnated.
So I'm 5 minutes over, so I'll end there. Any comments or questions?
I recall an act where emperor claimed that he was God, and then he got eaten by maggots. Who was that?
I think that was Titus, wasn't it? That he got bit by insects. I can't remember. do a word search real quick.
For what?
Titus.
Does it name him?
I thought it did. I know the Babylonian Talmud names Titus, and he was bit by insects, and that's how he got a fever and died.
Nothing in Acts.
Nothing.
Herod Agrippa was eaten by worms and died.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he wasn't an emperor though. He was a governor of Judea.
He was a satrap.
All right, that's all I got. Thank you. Break.